Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Agents of AI. I am your host, Peter Stubbe, community leader and strategist for Capto. Capto, as a reminder for those of you tuning in or those of you tuning in for the first time, is a builder of custom AI agents for the finance department, for tax people, for anything even beyond that as well too. We host this program in good faith with thought leaders, people in our network, clients, non-clients, everywhere and above and beyond, in the spirit of bringing insights related to AI agents and the proliferation of AI technology. So doing our part to help bring more signal, less noise. And the final thing that I'll share for everybody who's just new to our program or getting accustomed to it, I'm going to introduce our guests very shortly, but I'm not going to reveal their name or where they work, and they're going to be in a fun avatar. So please guess who it might be. Their identity will be revealed at the very end, but also focus on their insights and their thoughts and less about who they are and where they come from. We'll save that for the very end. All right, with that introduction underway and out of the way, I should say, I'm very excited to introduce Captain Toke. And for those of you guessing along the way, I think this is one of the most unique ways that we've had hints about who the guest might be. But Captain Toke, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself a little bit more, sharing some more hints, and we will make sure not to reveal your name or company till the very end. Final reminder. Go ahead, Captain Toke. Yeah.
I'll go me heartiest. Thank you. I don't think I've ever been, introduced like a pirate before, and actually I have to, once did in a role play. I was a 24-hour role play, live role play when I was very young, and I was actually in the Seafarer group cast, and I was a pirate. So I've actually done this before, and I had my teeth colored and all that. But now I also feel, the manliness of the beard. It looks nice. I can't do that for real,
Yeah.
but it looks really neat like this, actually. Maybe I should start wearing fake beards like this. But getting to it, I am from Denmark. I work in AI. I am an educated historian, and I am extremely adept at bridging the gap between a complex technology world and business reality, and also making sure that people understand the complexities of both worlds. I'm good at trying to ask some of the more difficult questions and finding the more subtle angles, and also see some trends in the global technology market that is relatively, I don't know what I could say, uncommon. I always hate these personal introductions because I tend to let other people flatter me instead.
Yeah. Well, I will do plenty of that throughout the course of the interview. The final hint that I will share with everybody is that Captain Toke is should be a familiar name and face for those of you that are in the AI and automation space or have been a part of it for many years. Captain Toke, I'm especially excited to make this connection with you personally because we have interacted for many years now. And again, I need to cut myself off from excitement before I reveal your true identity. Let's get back to sharing a little bit more about you and your background and experience. And the way that I present this next question is more so aligned to, what keeps you motivated to be a part of this ecosystem and what keeps you motivated to continue on this pathway for your career. You could have been a pirate. You had a past experience in role play. So what keeps you coming back to the automation space and your contributions to it as a thought leader, but also a practitioner as well? Talk a little bit more about what inspires you to be a part of it. Yeah.
I actually currently live in a house from 1622 where there used to live a ferryman, also called Captain Worms. So I think, the pirate, actually, there's so many things here that actually works out very well with the pirate. But what actually keeps me, motivated about my career and my role is that, and why I love to share so much and be part of this thought leadership, or whatever we could call it, right, is that it's to meet all these people. I'm extremely curious about people. I'm extremely curious about perspectives. I'm extremely curious about contextualizations of things. And so for me, it's always about, here is the thing, here is a sentence, here is a phrase, and then trying to see, but how does that work in different perspectives? For instance, also, people always complaining about this or that, saying that, oh, the bureaucracy. Then I try to figure out, but what is the purpose of why is it bureaucratic that way? Or what the CFO is saying this or that. He's always being a naysayer, but why is he being a naysayer? Is that because of his accountability and so on? I'm always very focused on that. I don't personally believe in things like happiness or frictionless or fully automated things are just easy peasy. I think I believe deep down philosophically that pain is a part of happiness, because overcoming pain, overcoming the things that are hard, means that you accumulate happiness, right? Not overcoming. And I also believe more in meaning than I believe in happiness that way as well. So I believe that it has to have a meaning, it has to matter what we do. And that is what I try to bring to the table all the time. How will this matter? How will this matter in years? How will this matter against what mattered 5 years ago? So for me, things are never, synchron just to what we see in the slice of the cake. It's always the entire cake, or more than that, it's the kitchen that made the cake that's interesting to me. And I try to bring that into perspective on also very low, very, very concrete, practical examples. So we never do things that sort of counteract that. But at the same time, that's also the difficulty, right? Because you're sort of bridging a wide gap between more philosophical existential normatives and practical realities, right? But I think if you don't do that, if you don't consider what you're actually doing, then you most often just end up in a place you don't want to be in, right?
Yeah. Well, let's say I think it's really important for leaders in this space to continue to drive forward the message of importance of humanness in what we do. I think that it cannot be repeated enough. I think that there is going to be continued pushback and friction by people that are newer to what automation brings to their organization or threatened by the impact of AI. So I value connecting with somebody like yourself, who is so respected and has such a strong following, well-deserved, and knowing that that's the root of what you do. But given, the context of the topics that you discuss are very focused on expanding technology that could, for instance, take.
But it's not just, Peter. It's not just about, it's not just about keeping humans there for the sake of humans. It has to make humans relevant in the loops they're in, and make machines relevant in the loops they're in, right? And that's also why focusing on, for instance, saying we want autonomy. Okay, do you really want that? Autonomy means that AI will write the business case and approve the business case. Do you want both? Or what do you actually want here? Because I think people are just saying words right now, but a lot of people are not understanding what's behind the words. And frankly, I don't think that AI regurgitations, even though I love AI, I don't think the regurgitations makes that any easier, because there's a difference between the words and the actual implication of the words. And this is getting long-haired, sorry, but that's actually super important for me to try to bridge that gap as well.
Excellent. So if I can maybe do a layered question on top of what we're here. So what do you feel is underappreciated about the work that you do? This could be your work in delivering this technology to your client base, or the work that you do as a thought leader and somebody that helps provide information and education to the broader ecosystem. I'm curious, what is something that if somebody wanted to have your job, here's something that you would tell them, like, be prepared to have to compartmentalize this challenge or address this challenge. What does something come to mind in that context?
Well, but I think that one of the things is that if you don't know where you are, you can't really move at speed, right? And you can't if you don't have a trajectory, you can't move at speed. But if you don't know where you are, you can't move either, right, forward. So I think it's really important that you sort of try to figure out what's actually going on right now, what is driving our decisions, how are we working, why are we working the way we're working, and how does that sort of prevent or inhibit the ways we want to move at speed with technology, for instance. I think it's super important that you sort of measure out what are we doing and try to make any kind of technology a bridge from where we are to where we want to be. Because in reality, most people talk about things like they want revolution. Oh, I'm so annoyed at how things are working. I just want this end goal that looks neat on PowerPoints. But reality is that most people do not want a revolution because it's bloody and it creates instability, it creates chaos. So I think the most underappreciated part is that everyone wants the end solution. Everyone wants, to save the money, have the automation, have all the people happy or fired if they're not supposed to be there or something like that, right? But no one really wants to do the job of really understanding why are we doing things and make the hard decisions that comes with that as well. So I think this whole contextualization of technology, more than just the direct actualization of it, I think that's maybe the most underappreciated part, but also the most important thing. Because really, if you don't know where you are, you can't say where you want to go, right? It actually makes a lot of sense if you think of it in the right way. And also saying that, if you're running on if you're in a world where there's a lot of things that do not work, and the future project knowledge is unclear or murky or misty because things are moving fast, then you can't run, right? You're basically on a cliffside and it's a fog, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to run in that scenario? No, you're not. And I think that's the underappreciated. That's difficult thing to explain, how you need to sometimes step back and contextualize a little bit more before you start moving. But then also say that if you do that, if you build the governance the right way, you can actually start to move at speed and get a trajectory where things are moving fast. So for me, everything I've ever done, even if it was back doing RPA, it's always been about building scalable, like rapidly scalable frameworks to move at speed, more than building, here's the thing that goes beep in the corner that cost you $50 billion or something like that, right?
Excellent. Next question. Namesake of the program is Agents of AI, right? And we have the opportunity to be connected with a very esteemed thought leader here, and I'm going to do my best to stop sharing hints. Can you share with us, maybe in the context of for somebody getting started and what the first use case they should go after, some of the first agentic AI use cases that come to mind for you that people should be exploring as they start their journey? It will probably be a history lesson for you, but motivation for some.
I think
the
funny things, right? I think that I used the ChatGPT in some of the early versions and was not really impressed. I remember actually, I think half a year before ChatGPT or a couple of months, I did a webinar with Emma Roloff where I said that AI is neat on paper, but it isn't anything in the real world. And if you say it's easy, not understanding what's actually going on, and then suddenly ChatGPT happened, right? And things just rapidly changed, right? So I remember sitting 2 days after it launched and just being like, "Whoa, this is writing my Lord of the Rings, zero trust architecture and Lord of the Rings tropes." And I was sharing that with a CISO friend of mine. I was like, "What is going on here? What is this? And how can it do this?" Right? So amazed like everyone else, and slightly, nervous as well, or nerved, or what do you call it? There was something ominous about it. There was something deeply unnerving about it, I actually think as well, while fascinating too, right? But I actually very, very quickly realized that this is something that would have a very big power in actually starting to work for doing or turning things that are unstructured into more structured formats. So that was always the inhibition for earlier forms of automation, that you couldn't work with something that was unstructured and non-digital, where this technology seemed now to be able to translate any kind of format into another format. So actually turning unstructured data into structured data. And that started making me also think a lot about how can we apply that and where do we see that in more uncommon situations. And one of the first, called agentic chains, we built was like a data retrieval agent where, you asked a question about, I just want some data about this. Then there was a BI agent that created the suggestions for how that could be interpreted in accordance to what there was in the database, and it would then give that response to a SQL agent that would generate the SQL statement that would then be reviewed by a senior SQL agent as well, which would then move on to someone who would translate the SQL statement into something I would understand, me as a normal business person who doesn't understand SQL, and then execute it. So it's like a full chain of these things where there's sort of a control on hallucination. There was also, but the key point of that was that it took something that was unstructured, but not just like an unstructured piece of paper, but an unstructured data request. That my request for data was unstructured because the data was in a structured database, and then it turned my unstructured request into a structured data request and provided me the data. And that was just an eye opener for a lot of people on how we can actually work with this. And it was also a very early sign of how AI would, which it is currently doing, impact the world of coding so much, because it's one of the things it's best at is working with code, simply because code is formal language, right? There's no hidden connotations, there's no extra verbal, non-verbal abilities in that. It's just there in the digital realm, and it works very well doing that. So I think that was both an early sign of that, and it was also a really great use case to show the unstructured versus structured data and build a chain that made sense.
Very cool. And I love how you put together the history of moving with technology from the structured process, rigid process.
But that's everything we've been doing. Since the 60s, IT has been about structured digital data and tables, and then you add software on top of it, and software on top of that, and then you add RPA bots on top, and it's all ends up in some kind of UI somewhere. But if it's unstructured, it goes nowhere, right? That's the problem. Or then I think 10 years ago we invented data lakes. We just dump it here if it's unstructured, but that just gives headache to other people, right? So we basically had no real solution to that until these AIs came in, and the language models came in and were like, yeah, we can interpret that and put it in a different structure, right? So you have an email from a customer, let's turn that into JSON in some nice format. Like, 1, 2, 3, it's just a different thing. They create metadata out of the blue, right?
Yeah.
And metadata, if you zoom out enough, that's everything that drives processes and decisions.
Yeah. Excellent. So now I've been most anxious to ask this question on our episode here. Being the futurist that you are, and I hope that you don't mind me continuing to stroke your ego, because you did happen to mention at the beginning of the call. What are the agentic or AI use or core AI use cases that you're most excited about that might not be in production yet, but you're seeing a vision for coming to market relatively soon, and things that could go into production within organizations? I'm just thinking of things that are maybe more so bleeding edge, or just haven't had the we work a lot with finance professional, accuracy and compliance and governance are like the number one things that those target audiences value. And without reaching that a certain threshold of accuracy and compliance, things can't go into production. So we've had ideas where we aren't able to reach that threshold of accuracy, but maybe in the future we can get there. Now I'm stealing the microphone too much. You go ahead. What's something that you're excited about or working on that you feel like could be the next bridge for this technology? Yeah.
To be honest, I think there's a lot of things here, right? Because everyone's like, what's going to come and what's the big bridge for something for the future? I think the biggest thing right now is a weird sense of disappointment. If you go 3 years out, 3 years ago, everyone said we had AGI in a year or AGI in 2 years or whatever, right? The only thing we have a higher sense of quality or something. We're not as satisfied with our AI outputs as we were 3 years ago. That's fair. Everyone was like, oh, this is an awesome reply 3 years ago. Now everyone's like, oh, you get more picky, right? And I think that what I really hope that will happen in the future, the near future, and as I said before, some kind of proximate objectives. Where are you now? Where can you move to? I want people to move away from the chatbot. I think way too many companies are still at the chatbot level. They have some weird, personal productivity chatbot. I think the future of everyone trying to take their processes into an AI is what we're doing right now. Everyone's taking their processes and putting it into an AI. It's super annoying. And there's so many exceptionally crappy AI integrations into workflow suites today. And I just want to see AI work in the processes, right? Yeah. I had a client meeting the other day where I actually said that. I said, they want some AI to how people can use AI. Or I said, or not be aware that they're using AI would maybe be my preferred one, right? I want us to get to the invisible AI. I want to start doing things and stop being called AI. That's the future vision. This is what success smells like, spells like, sounds like, looks like. I think, remember the RPA days, right? Everyone, 10 years in, people were still doing so many hours. These are the many hours that our RPA program has saved you, or the money we've saved, right? And I always ask, we never did to do that for SAP or for your ERP. You don't say how much money did it save us to do an ERP implementation. You don't do that, because that's a thing you just need. It's a thing you just have. It's just doing things, right? But as long as you're still measuring that way, you're still a project. And I really want to see AI get there, right? Getting to something that's real and actually start doing things. That said, I also think we have an exceptional, a very big consumption gap right now, and I mean that in maybe a different way than the typical AI labs would say, because they want people just to use more AI or AI tokens. I think what I mean with consumption gap is that all the output that AIs can produce, if people cannot consume that. So you say, I want to see more controlling. I've seen tons of AI controlling cases that could improve finance, like, for years. But the problem is that I could highlight so many things with AI, but if there's no one to consume that, to take that, use it, put it into actions and decisions, it doesn't matter, right? So if every finance function is still, filled with backlogs of things to do, they can't have more things to do. So that AI has highlighted for them, even though there might be money there, because they don't have time for it. So I think the consumption part, back to the taste as well, is like super important. What's valuable? What do we have time to consume? What do we want to consume? What matters, right? And I think that's the getting real. I think that's what we need to focus more on, is what do we actually want, instead of saying that we should just have AI, is say, what do we want fixed? Very, very frankly, let's speak about problems. Let's not speak about AI.
Well, listen, there's two things that I'm going to attach to right now. One, very simplistically, like, the consumption thing is like really resonating with, even on a personal level, because like, early on, so excited about, okay, AI meeting summaries and transcript and being able to document all of our conversations and discussions. But now I feel like individuals are using that as a crutch and just copy and pasting these multi-paragraph summaries of 5-minute conversations. Like, I can't even consume the output, and I can't imagine what that looks like on an enterprise level of trying to implement.
And you've seen these where your colleagues are sending you, I just made the AI do a quick recap of what we spoke about. You don't read that recap. You don't want to read it. It's like, I could do that with my own AI. So the problem is that when you do it with AI, it's worthless. And that's the weirdest thing of all this, right? If an LLM can do it, it's worthless. And that's like super difficult to grasp, right? Like me making songs with Suno, right? And I'm sending it to all my friends. All my friends like, no one listens to it. I tried to post some Suno songs a couple of times, but people like, no one's interacting with it because it's worthless. It's crap, right? Everyone can do it. It's commodity. What is differentiation? Well, that's she seems to have an invisible touch. It's human, right? Sorry, but sorry, I was singing here on your podcast. Sorry about that, Peter. The singing pirate singing. What is it even? I'm singing Invisible Touch. That's Phil Collins, right? Genesis.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
The Genesis pirate. Yeah. I can feel it coming through the air tonight.
No, and what I was going to say is I really love connecting with people from the RPA ecosystem and the automation ecosystem that have now transitioned their, morphed their careers into agentic and into AI, naturally because of where the world has gone. But we've also seen this story play out before. We've seen the excitement around adoption, and we've seen the excitement around the headline results, and then you dig like literally one layer deeper on the onion, and you realize the fragility, you reali's it's
the same fractal, right? And I remember, it's like I think I had a couple of months where I was actually a little bit okay. Is this? There was this old saying we said, you can't automate if you don't understand it. And I had a couple of months where I was like, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe LLMs can automate it, even though we don't understand. But now I'm back to, you need to understand the purpose and what you want to do and why you're doing it. Because then you can automate it with AI. And that's just the bottom line. It keeps being the bottom line, right?
And if I could share one final nod to, we try to not make this a commercial environment to promote Capto, but, when we enter into our client relationships, simplicity is the number one thing that we focus on for our initial deployments, because we try not to get people's eyes too big on what could be, and more focus on what actually could be and what could actually work in production and evolve from there. And I think that, with the headlines and the pushes for, you log into LinkedIn or Twitter or anywhere, and it's, I did this in 5 minutes and it saved me 500 hours, and that's not reality.
No.
So, all right. I think we can do a whole separate show on that, but I know that I had to step away and took up a few extra minutes of your time today. So we're gonna start to wrap the program here with final words of advice, wisdom, resources that you would point our listeners in the direction of as they continue to strengthen their automation and AI journeys.
Yeah, obviously, I do have a podcast myself.
Yeah.
Right? I think I said that as well. So that's obviously also a resource I would advise people to join to dig into. But I think there's so many good things out there. I think obviously anything Andre Carpathy is saying. I think anything. There's so many people. Many people. I have challenges with that, because I wrote down some names I would like to share, but I'm also like, it's difficult because then some other guests from my podcast I'm not mentioning, so I don't want to do that. But I think being curious and being inquisitive and realizing that there's no stupid question here, I think that's the most important thing actually to do. Very
Great.
short answer.
That's excellent. I think everybody, once we reveal your identity in just a few seconds here, will understand and appreciate and go and follow your podcast, and that the guests that you have on your list is a great place to start, and your podcast is a great place to start too. So
thank you, Peter.
Without further ado, enough teasing, enough playing games. Let's reveal your identity. The way that you're going to do that, Captain Talk, is by going back to your settings and simply clicking off the pirate setting. It should reveal your full identity. Yeah.
Okay, I can do that now. So there we go. Yeah.
Hey!
Oh, no beard anymore.
Well, listen, thank you very much for joining the program. Now, some people should definitely recognize who you are, but please go ahead and introduce yourself, share more, and who you are. Yeah.
I am Captain Talk, and the reason that I was Captain Talk is because TOC is the only constant. So I'm Lasse Rindam. I'm the lead AI and technology strategist at the Danish CFO consultancy Basico, and I'm also the host of the Only Constant podcast. Anyone can hear me speak regularly on the podcast if you want to do that, but I'm also always open to discussions with peers and to deliver some solid, sharp advisory services across the globe. So that's basically what I do. I'm curious, as I said, and I'm just super happy, Peter, that you also wanted to have me on your show today. And thank you for all the things that you've also been doing for the community. I know you've done a lot also previously in your career. That's also a really big part of why I'm here. So a little bit of praise to you. I don't think there's many people out there building communities the way you're doing it. So thank you, Peter, for that. And it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. I mean, not to just high five each other here, but the pleasure's all mine. Lassie, I've been a follower of yours for many years, and I've been actually truly, genuinely, personally motivated by the output that you've had, the success that you've had with TOC. I don't know if this should come off of as a true and sincere compliment. I remember when you didn't have the tens of thousands of followers that you had, and I've seen where you've taken it, especially in recency. So it's a true honor to have you a part of our little program here, and we want to, aspire to be have the reach that you do one day. But all right,
thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you.
Great.
Everybody, go follow Lassie on LinkedIn, and also connect with Team Capto. Follow his podcast. That's our conclusion for the day. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.